Welcome to the KZGN News. Today we're bringing news about the Super Walmart. From Shannon Grove's office, presidential debate news, news about the Parade of 1,000 Flags, today's KZGN Talking Points editorial, and much more.
From the Rademacher Hills to Bee Mountain and the mighty Sierras, Ridgecrest to Inyokern and China Lake, this is your news for the Indian Wells Valley with the KZGN News Crew.
Hello, I'm Tom Wakenick. Thanks for joining us for the news affecting Ridgecrest in the Indian Wells Valley. Today's big news story is from last night's City Council meeting. With the backing of fireworks and a drum roll, City Economic Development Director Gary Parsons made the following announcement. The Super Walmart is ready to break ground. He said all paperwork and permitting is done. Construction for the new store could start in 30 to 60 days. During this period, we could expect to see a construction trailer moved onto the site and surveying done for the beginning of grading. He asked the City Council to set a date within the next 30 days to hold an official groundbreaking ceremony. Gary said Walmart officials will come for the event when they get the date established. Gary also recommended that the council make sure and invite any people that were involved in the 13-year effort to get the store built. It took 13 years to get to this point, he said. It is also interesting to note that the only person with the city that was here when the project started is Gary Parsons himself. So it appears we will finally start actual construction. In news from Sacramento and Assemblywoman Shannon Grove, she has released a statement of concern over how the contracts are being awarded for California's Covered California. For some reason, the legislature exempts Covered California, which is the state's version of Obamacare, from the normal competitive bidding process and oversight requirement that are standard practice throughout state government. That's right, no bid contracting is rampant within Covered California, affecting 42% of all contracts, and it's legal. This issue came to the surface last week in the Assembly Budget Committee, her testimony on SB 102, which will allow more non-competitive building for contracts, including IT contracts.
I would like to just elaborate on that because I don't want to say I was satisfied with the answer, but it says that this agency is listed as a high-risk agency, meaning that the auditor, the state auditor, has already labeled Covered California as a high-risk agency, which means it's higher for potential waste, fraud, and abuse. You got $184 million in contracts without a competitive bidding process. That's a significant amount of money for state dollars, taxpayer dollars. And so I just want to make sure that I understand that my nonpartisan Department of Finance is telling me that they're comfortable with accepting this language that says it will not have a competitive bidding process. It won't go out to a competitive bidding process, especially because the state auditor said that it's a high-risk agency. And that's what you're telling us. You're okay with it not going out to bid at $184 million. That is not going to be competitively bid.
Existing law already puts in place the mechanisms for which Covered California can operate.
I just really want a yes or a no. I'm asking you as a state representative representing the 34th Assembly District, I'm asking my Department of Finance, are you comfortable with sending out $184 million of taxpayer dollars without it going to competitive bid? I'm asking your wisdom and direction. And I'm just asking for a yes or no answer.
And my response is Covered California, under existing law, already has the authority to do what they're currently doing. We're comfortable with the language as being proposed. We work very closely with the department to ensure that things are being run in a transparent manner and that there's appropriate oversight.
The concern is that no bid contracts can lead to cronyism, as reported last year in an AP article claiming Covered California improperly favoring contracts with companies with ties to its executive director. Several Republicans on the committee tried to get straight answers from State Finance Director. He finally said he saw no problem in the process. Now in the news about the next Republican presidential debate, CNN announced on Tuesday that it would change their criteria for candidates to qualify for its top-tier September 16th debate. This comes following a series of complaints from Carly Fiorina that the standard the network was using was unfair. The network said initially that the top 10 candidates in an average of public polls from July 16th to September 10th would be used to allow participation in their top-tier debate, while the rest of the candidates would participate in a separate one. Fiorina argued that the standards were unfair because they didn't actually reflect her increase in the polls after a strong performance at the August 6th GOP debate. The network will now look at the top 10 candidates in an average poll from August 7th to September 10th. CNN said in a statement that it is changing the criteria because of a lack of available polling following the August 6th debate, noting there have only been 3 new polls to help shape the lineup of the debate. CNN offered this statement: in the event that any candidate is polling in the top 10 in an average of approved national polls released between August 7th and September 10th, we will add those candidates to our top-tier debate, even if those candidates did not poll in the top 10 in the average approved national polls between July 16th and September 10th. We have discussed these changes with the Republican National Committee and the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, and they are fully supportive. This is a much fairer way to set the candidates for the debate. In a statement from the Ronald Reagan Foundation in Simi Valley, they said, in response to the recent announcement by CNN about their debate criteria, Executive Director of the Reagan Foundation, John Hubush, said, we applaud CNN's decision. It's fair. The event here now has all the makings of being a huge, historic, and exciting debate. History shows President Reagan strongly believed that people should be heard during the debate process, and he was right. As reported earlier, the CNN Reagan Library debate will be held at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library on September 16th. Following tradition, the upcoming debate will be the 4th presidential primary debate held at the Reagan Library in recent years. The debate will be divided into 2 parts featuring 2 groups of candidates. Both groups will be moderated by CNN anchor and chief Washington correspondent Jake Tapper. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to the preservation and promotion of Ronald Reagan's legacy of inspired freedom and his timeless principles of individual liberty, economic opportunity, global democracy, and national pride. It sustains the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum, the Reagan Center for Public Affairs, the Walter and Lenore Annenberg Presidential Learning Center, and the Air Force One Pavilion. They are all located in Simi Valley, California. The library houses 63 million pages of gubernatorial, presidential, and personal papers, and over 60,000 gifts and artifacts chronicling the lives of Ronald and Nancy Reagan. It now also serves as the final resting place of America's 40th president. I would add that I have visited this library, and it is awesome. Now a reminder that the Parade of 1,000 Flags is coming this Saturday. The parade will start at 9 a.m. The Ridgecrest Exchange Club, in partnership with China Lake, will join our nation in commemorating the 14th anniversary of the tragedy of 9/11. This is the 12th year that the local Exchange Club has sponsored the 9/11 Remembrance Field. We will again include the Parade of 1,000 Flags, which has become this community's signature event. In addition, the Remembrance Wall is on display in the Kerr McGee Center. The parade route will remain the same as last year. The 3/4 mile route begins at the Sierra Lanes parking lot, goes north on China Lake Boulevard, then west on California Avenue past City Hall and into Freedom Park. The parade will be staged in the Sierra Lanes parking lot promptly at 8:30 a.m. Saturday. More than 1,000 flag bearers will post their flags at Freedom Park, followed by a brief ceremony honoring our wounded warriors, firefighters, and law enforcement, emergency, and military personnel. Parade participants will include Congressman Kevin McCarthy, China Lake city and county dignitaries, law enforcement personnel, firefighters, military personnel, and the Burroughs High School Band. Contributing to this inspiring event at Freedom Park, flag bearers will become a choir of 1,000 voices singing God Bless America. The 1,000 flags will remain posted in the park through Saturday, September 12th. The traditional candlelight vigil will be held at dusk on Friday, September 11th at Freedom Park. To volunteer as a flag bearer, call 760-371-4301. Call now to participate in this great parade. Now please stay tuned for KZGN's Talking Points editorial when we come back. Thanks for staying with us. Now it's time for the 74th KZGN News Talking Points editorial. Here's today's topic. Is CNN correct in changing their criteria for the next Republican debate? But first, a response to last Tuesday's editorial discussion with Ethan. Ethan replied yesterday with this: I'm not entirely sure where to begin or if it's worth any more of our time to do so. I will say 3 things. First, when Mr. Trump said Megyn Kelly had blood coming from her eyes and whatever, we all know what he meant by the whatever. Your spin, dodge, while commendable, misses the mark. Second, you defend Mr. Trump's tossing of the journalist or him standing up to his attackers. That's supposed showing of backbone apparently inspires conservatives. There is a man in the Oval Office who has had his own verbal tussles with journalists. Interesting how the very conservatives who applaud Mr. Trump for showing backbone to a mouthy journalist have chastised the POTUS, which is the President of the United States, for doing virtually the same thing. What say you about the obvious hypocrisy exhibited from conservative pundits when it comes to this POTUS handling of the media compared to conservative politicians? And lastly, he says, I'm not sure, but I do believe in your editorial you left off the part about my political leanings that I wrote in my initial response. When you quoted my post, it would have been nice had you included that small disclaimer so those who listened or read this editorial have an accurate perception of my frame of mind instead of assuming I'm a disgruntled liberal. Well, Ethan, thanks for the comments. Here's my answer to your comments. And I agree, we can move on after this. Answers in order of your comments are as follows. First, even though you call it spin and dodge, I stand by my statement. We all do not agree with the spin liberals have chosen to use interpreting his comment. I'm not calling you a liberal, just that you refuse to consider a potential other interpretation of his comment. Where I grew up back east, the description of someone having blood in their eyes was in relation to their level of anger and desire to cause you serious harm. If anyone said that phrase, he has blood coming from his eyes, to me, I would interpret it as a very intense attack coming against me. If you can't accept my sincere definition, then that is your opinion. But it's not spin, it's a real phrase used in common language. As far as your second point about backbone and President Obama, we weren't talking about President Obama. We're discussing Trump. Instead of addressing my comments about the Trump backbone, you try to change the subject to how pundits criticize Obama when he stands up to reporters. I have never done an editorial about how Obama runs his news conferences other than his continuous use of teleprompters. And again, instead of my discussing my editorial about Trump, you seem to want to move the discussion to tie me into other conservative commentators. Well, I'm not doing my editorials about other commentators. I saw no need to go out searching for other people to compare his backbone to others. I wish all candidates stood up to the attack pundits. Finally, you requested I include your disclaimer for your comments. Well, I didn't initially include them, as I saw no need to. I will now, though, since you have specifically asked me to. Here's Ethan's disclaimer. Now, before you jump to the conclusion that this is just the ramblings of a lib progressive Democrat, it is not. I am an independent that votes for person and message and not party. I like Rand Paul. I would have voted for him or even Rick Perry. Above all that, I just want honesty from the candidates and balanced analysis from the pundits. So thank you, Ethan. I think this was a good discussion. I respect your opinion. I would hope you do the same towards me. My opinion comes from my heart after sincere life lessons learned, research, and education. Now today's editorial. Is CNN correct in changing the criteria for the next Republican debate? With a large field of candidates, as we see on the Republican side, limiting the size of the group is necessary. This is to make sure we have enough time to ask questions of the candidates and let them all have the opportunity to answer. While the lower-rated candidates do suffer from the splitting of the debate panels, it has to be done. Of course, if I was one of those second-tiered candidates, I'd be very upset too. The real encouragement for the change in criteria really comes from the Carly Fiorina camp, and rightly so. She came off the last debate as the winner of the second-tier debate. Many even said she won the debate from the perspective of considering all the candidates in both debates. Apparently, she had a massive grassroots campaign putting pressure on CNN to change the criteria. She has shown a rapid rise in all the early state polls, and she is rising in national polls, leaving many of the second-tier candidates behind. To this I say, good for her. Again, this is making for an exciting campaign. This changing of criteria enables the debates to be effective and informative. In conclusion, I believe the changing of the criteria is appropriate. I look forward to a great second debate. I'm Tom Wicknick, and that's what I think. I'd like to know what you think. If you have any comments about this editorial or would like to discuss or recommend a topic, I'd like to hear from you. Please email them to info@kzgn.net. Now stay tuned for weather and sports after the break. Thanks for staying with us. Let's go to Keith for the weather.
Thank you, Tom. From the National Weather Service. Higher than normal temperatures will continue across parts of the central and eastern U.S., highs reaching 20 to 25 degrees above normal in some locations. One of the warmest areas will be the northern plains, where high temperatures could reach as high as 100 degrees. Current temperatures across the nation: Carolinas came in at 81, Georgia 83, Arkansas 88, Colorado 78, Arizona 88, and Los Angeles at 70. And for our forecast here in the IWV, tonight mostly clear with a low around 63, south wind 10 to 20 miles per hour with gusts as high as 30. Friday sunny with a high near 91, south wind 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusts as high as 30. Friday night mostly clear with a low around 61, south wind 15 to 20 miles per hour with gusts as high as 30. Saturday sunny with a high near 91, south-southwest wind 10 to 15 miles per hour. Saturday night mostly clear with a low around 61, south wind 5 to 15 miles per hour with gusts as high as 20. Sunday will be sunny with a high near 95, north-northwest wind 10 miles per hour. Sunday night mostly clear with a low around 63, south-southeast wind 5 miles per hour. And on Monday, Labor Day, sunny with a high near 97, west wind 5 miles per hour. Monday night mostly clear with a low around 66, west wind 5 to 15 miles per hour. And on Tuesday, sunny with a high near 99, west wind 5 to 10 miles per hour. And today's record high was set in 1988 at 109 degrees. The record low was set in 1999 at 54 degrees. Now back to Tom and the rest of the KZGN News.
Thanks, Keith. Now let's go to Tom Heck with sports.
And a very pleasant Thursday afternoon to everyone. Let's start with Burroughs football. Tomorrow night they'll be over at Tehachapi. This afternoon it'll be freshman football. Burroughs will take on Tehachapi. Now tonight Todd Mather will have his weekly talk show, and if you want to tune in at 7 o'clock you can find Todd Mather at 12:40 a.m. He'll be talking about last week's game against Palmdale and talking about tomorrow night's game against Tehachapi. Two different animals. One team extremely athletic, Palmdale, and tomorrow night a team with great discipline, a double wing type offense, wind and grind, and that's Tehachapi. It's going to be very interesting. Okay, let's talk about the Angels. 9-4 winners yesterday in Oakland. They get ground on Houston. Houston loses again at home to Seattle. Boy, the Astros trying to shoot themselves in the foot. The Astro lead over the Angels is now 5 games. They have a 2-game lead over Texas. The Rangers win again. They beat the Padres in 10 innings in San Diego last night. All right, the Twins playing great baseball. They win again for the third night. They beat the White Sox. The Twins right now would be the other wild card team with the Yankees. The Yankees right now in second place behind Toronto. Now yesterday both the Yankees and Toronto won. Toronto beat Cleveland. Toronto wins 2-3 against the Indians. The Indians are kind of like the Arizona Diamondbacks. Every time they start to get close and you hear them breathing behind your back, they just all of a sudden fall apart and fade away. Well, that's the difference between playing in October and not playing in October, though. The Marlins beat the Braves. The Braves they have lost now 11 of 13 games. They have fallen to pieces. Milwaukee beats Kansas City. Milwaukee playing a little bit better. Kansas City has almost clinched that Central Division. Well, believe it or not, college football starts tonight. Some big games tonight and over the weekend. Tonight's big game, I think, is Michigan against Utah. That's in Salt Lake City. That marks the return of Jim Harbaugh. Harbaugh coached in the NFL for the last 5 years with the 49ers. Harbaugh will be leading the charge at Michigan, trying to rebuild that program. Arkansas State will visit USC this weekend. Oregon and Eastern Washington from the Pac-12, also from the Pac-12, ASU and Texas A&M. Tonight, number 22 Arizona takes on UTSA, that's Texas San Antonio. And also tonight, number 2 ranked SMU will take on Baylor. Or I beg your pardon, number TCU will be at Minnesota. SMU, much improved, will take on Baylor in Dallas. All right, 16 Georgia Tech and Elkhorn State. Boise State and Washington. Now, Boise State, number 23, against an improved Washington team from the Pac-12. And also from the Pac-12, number 21 Stanford plays Northwestern in Palo Alto. Now, the Pac-12 this year, football-wise, to me, much improved. You've got 6 top teams ranked in the Pac-12. Should be very interesting. Boy, hard to believe it's fall, it's here already, but what a lot of fun that's going to be. All right, great time for sports enthusiasts. You got baseball winding down, college football starting, and pro football just about a week away. That's your sports for this Thursday afternoon. I'm Tom Heck for KZGN.
So that's the news for today. Obviously, KZGN-TV know you have a choice in what you watch for your news. We all thank you for choosing KZGN-TV, Ridgecrest's only locally owned community TV station. Coming up next is Ridgecrest Talk.